And today we're going to do a design school update. And one thing I want to just let you all know is I'm not going to talk about it in the presentation today, but Penny has been reorganizing a lot of resources on the Mighty Networks platform, which you can't see because Mighty Networks is down. But when it comes back up, she has been going back through the entire year and collecting all of the videos of all of the meetings, organizing them into sections for every one of the bioregions and landscapes. And so there's going to be a really beautiful collection of content. And it's sort of astonishing, isn't it? How much educational material has come across all of our landscapes in the last year. And also we are starting to make these design school updates public, which means that when I publish on YouTube, they'll be public and create a public playlist so that people can follow along and so that you can share the link to the design school updates with anyone that you like outside of the school. We feel like the work we're doing is at a point now where it's really important for more people to follow along. And we also feel like the healthy gatekeeping of having a $5 per month membership, which allows us to have high quality conversations and avoids free riders, that we think that having people sign up for the new learning journey that I'm going to talk about today will be a more valuable reason for people to join the school anyway than just to hear design school updates. So with that said, I want to jump in because basically Penny and I were gone for like 5 weeks in the Regenerate Cascadia tour. And then we came back to a whole bunch of stuff we had to do. Last week, I was at a big global gathering of social movement leaders called Shift the Power, and a bunch of stuff is coming into clarity. And I think we can pretty well paint the picture of at least the next 6 months of the design school and probably a good feel for what the next year is going to be like. And so that's what I want to show you is the clarity and the continuity and movement of many things and just how well it's all coming together. And so with that said, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and go into presentation mode, reminding us that we'll have plenty of time for discussion afterwards. So here we go. Today is December 12th, 2023. And the updates that we're going to cover today are sort of, you might think of this as where we are going in the new year. So the way I want to begin the update today is with a slide that I created from the Design School update 2 weeks ago, which is to remind us that in the last year, from November of last year through to the beginning of December this year, that we've done a lot of activities, and the main backbone of it all has been the bioregional activations and the on-the-ground work. You can see that we've made multiple visits to the Colorado Basin, to the Great Lakes region, a very big visit to Cascadia. There's actually going to be an important bioregional update session devoted to Cascadia this Thursday that Claire and Brandon are going to present, because there's actually more going on there than they could present in an entire session. There's so much going on now. And that we've been building increasing numbers of supports around what we see happening on the ground and what we see being needed on the ground. So what I want to do today is show you some of the shiny, beautiful things that you'll get to experience in the new year, starting in January. And so the big thing is that we're starting a new learning journey on January 16th called Birthing Bioregional Learning Centers. And what I want to stress about learning journeys is that while it's easy to think of a learning journey as an online course, it's actually a great deal more. And for those of you who experienced a large period of the time of the Earth Regenerators community, there was a governing system that was designed and intentionally implemented around the pattern, the sequence, and the cycles of learning journeys. So we had an 18-month period where the entire online platform and all of its complex relationships to dozens of parallel activities were all held in a coherent flow by learning journeys that took place every 2 months. And so when we talk about a learning journey, we're talking about a coherent way of bringing together different parts of the design school. And you're going to see that in the way that we're structuring this. So this learning journey is called Birthing of Bioregional Learning Centers. And our goal is not to learn how to birth bioregional learning centers in a textbook, Our goal is to birth real bioregional learning centers in the world. And so some of you are already thinking about creating bioregional learning centers in your landscapes. And so you will be able to participate at the level of founders of bioregional learning centers if you so choose. And so basically, this learning journey will be structured like this. And I used this slide 2 weeks ago, but I want to review it. That we're going to be on a 2-week cycle that repeats. So 1 week, the week starting January 16th, we're going to have a webinar on bioregional design focused on how to birth bioregional learning centers. And then on Thursdays, we'll have a discussion session about what we talked about in the webinars. And we're already getting feedback from people in New Zealand and Australia and people in Europe that they don't like the time that we offer our Thursday discussion sessions. So it's very likely we'll have 2 discussion sessions for the Eastern and Western hemispheres of the Earth. So those of you who are in the Middle East or in the Mediterranean or in Australia, don't worry. We plan to accommodate you by recording the webinars. So even if you don't watch them live, you can watch the recordings. And we'll have a discussion session that is live in your time zone. And then the idea is this will alternate with design school updates on the alternating weeks and bioregional updates where we share what is happening across our landscapes throughout the design school. So there'll be 1 week of design build and 1 week of updates and sharing about the system as a whole. And we're going to focus the learning journey on real world examples from landscapes, which means some of your landscapes. And so let's look at a little bit of how this works. It's basically like this. In January, we're going to start a learning journey that runs for 6 months. And in these 6 months, we're going to explore how to birth bioregional learning centers into the world, which includes how to find land, how to map processes, how to create community engagement, how to mobilize funding, how to set up governance, how to begin to design pedagogy and learning processes, how to begin doing integrated landscape management, all kinds of things related to how to get these learning centers up and running in the world. But during these 6 months, we're going to have a very important Bioregional Earth Summit in the Greater Takaranto bioregion that Brian and Susan of the Legacy Project are organizing and that Penny and I are helping with. So in February, and I'll talk more about this in a moment, there's going to be a major pulse of activity that moves from local landscapes to the Great Lakes region to the planet as a whole. And this will bring greater coherence to the learning journey itself about how our bioregional learning centers can work together, as well as how they can be born in their own landscapes. And then about midway through, about 3 months into the learning journey, we're going to invite any participants of the learning journey who would like to declare that they want to become founders of bioregional learning centers. And then we're going to form a parallel track for a cohort of founders. And what this means is everyone participating in the learning journey will be able to continue learning, but we'll provide special focused support to those who want to create their own bioregional learning centers. And then we will integrate the rest of the learning journey into the design build process of these learning centers for those who choose to be founders. So here I'm thinking of people like Jonathan and Victoria in the Finger Lakes, or Brian and Susan in the Greater Takaranto, or Claire and Brandon in the Salish Sea and in Cascadia, us here in Barichara, where we're creating bioregional learning centers. By the way, there are other places that are also thinking of creating bioregional learning centers. So if I'm not saying your name or your place, it's just because there's so many. And what we're hoping is as more people join the design school for this learning journey, we may end up with 20 or 30 bioregional learning centers being born, or at least creating support systems for helping them to be born as part of the learning journey itself. And something we're thinking very seriously about is as the learning journey comes to an end in the middle of the year, to actually host a founders retreat and invite all of the people who want to become founders of these learning centers to come to a learning exchange in Barichara, Colombia, with the people here in Colombia who have been working to create territorial governance, landscape regeneration, and the Barichara Ecoversity for about 3 years. And notice I put a question mark here because we might decide to do it in North America instead. We might do it at a different time, but what we're intending to do is during the first 6 months of the year to build the capacity, possibly including fundraising, to be able to bring all of the founders of these bioregional learning centers into an in-person immersive event and a place where we can learn together. And so as you can see, this isn't just an online course. This is infrastructure building. This is community building. This is real-world design. And this is mobilization of resources and governance into landscapes, all at the same time. And so we're hoping a lot of people join the learning journey. Word is starting to get out and people are joining the design school to join this learning journey. We think it's going to attract a lot of people. Even if it doesn't, even if it's only like 25 or 30 people, it's going to be a very powerful experience for whoever comes and participates in it. And so as we build this level of coherence and integration between online and on the ground, we can start to see how this learning journey will work. Because really, we're not just teaching bioregional learning centers. We're going to be exploring how to set up platforms for bioregional regeneration with an emphasis on the learning ecosystem, which is the bioregional learning center. But we're also going to explore how to weave and activate and integrate a tapestry of local projects to be able to create a bioregional learning center, but also to help start to set up territorial governance. Here in Barichara, we're creating a territorial foundation. So we'll talk a lot about territorial foundations, but really it's whatever models make the most sense. So we're going to be exploring how to create territorial governance, how to weave tapestries of real world projects in service to birthing of bioregional learning centers. Said another way, we're going to explore these conceptual frameworks for doing this kind of design work at the required scales of landscapes and bioregions. But because we're already a year into bioregional activations and we're working with landscapes all over the place, we're going to be applying these conceptual frameworks to real-world contexts where bioregional activations have already taken place. And you can start to see how the design school is going to be from the ground to the internet, to the ground, to the internet, to the ground. And pretty soon you'll have a hard time telling where one ends and the other begins, and that is intentional. And so this is what the bioregional learning centers learning journey is going to be about. Now, during this time, as I said, in February, there's going to be the 7th Generation Bioregional Earth Summit hosted in the Greater Takaranto bioregion. And the reason I mention this here is that one of the things that we've been talking about since like late November of last year, when I wrote a little article about activating a planetary network of bioregions and trying to get to 100 bioregions in the first year. We didn't quite get to 100, but we've covered a lot of ground. Is that next year, what we're going to do is birth a coherent narrative of planetary scale regeneration that weaves together with our landscapes, our bioregions, our larger continental scale processes, our continents, and the planet as a whole. And there's going to be a 5-day event with live and virtual sessions. Brian and Susan will tell us more about this soon. Just full disclosure, Brian and Susan are planning to share with us a lot more of their thinking about this with Penny and me on Wednesday. So we have some understanding of this, but they're continually evolving their thinking. But I just want you to know that in early February, this event could be catalyzing across all of our landscapes and across the school as a whole. And so it will have a relationship with the learning journey, even though the learning journey is a parallel process to it. Another thing that's been happening, and I'm going to talk more about this in the next couple of slides, is that a lot of work has been happening in North America and a lot of work is happening in South America, but so far they've had very little relationship with each other. And so we're going to start actively weaving the efforts in North and South America. And I'm going to explain a little bit about how we're doing that. For one thing, there's already a network of 5 territorial foundations in Colombia, and more of them being set up in Ecuador, Peru, Brazil, Venezuela, Costa Rica, Mexico. And so there's a network of territorial foundations that are ready to organize themselves for bioregional regeneration, but they haven't been plugged into the design school yet. So we're exploring the idea to birth the design school in Español. We're talking about creating Escuela de Diseño para Regenerar la Tierra. And the idea is, because Penny is the person, she's sort of the mastermind and community curator, the architect of the interactions for the Mighty Networks platform. She's continually updating and evolving it. That Penny and I have been talking about how we could create a proto version, like a Mighty Networks in Spanish for the design school, that we could get off the ground while we're busy doing everything else. We already have 2 members of our team here in Barichara, Tanya and Ceci. They're both bilingual, and they are able to co-facilitate the learning journey in Spanish. So what we're planning to do is launch the learning journey in English in January, and then translate all of the webinars and give them again in Spanish. And starting in March, give the same webinars in Spanish and have Tanya and Ceci facilitating the design sessions in Spanish and creating a relationship between the 2 platforms. So the idea is that the design school will soon become bilingual, which we think is going to be a huge deal, because I know how much is going on in Latin America, and it's huge. So much going on in Latin America, and it can inform and accelerate so much of what's happening in North America and vice versa. Now, I'm not meaning to exclude the other parts of the world. It's just that we're the most advanced in our relationships and in our actions on these 2 continents. And so we're going to bring the learning exchanges that are happening between, say, the Colorado Basin and the Great Lakes, which has already been happening throughout the year. Now we're going to bring these learning exchanges between North and South America. And this is something that we think is a really big deal, and it's going to have far-reaching consequences, and we're really excited about it. We're also a little nervous because it's going to be a ton of work, but we're on our way, and we found a way to make it feasible, that we believe we can do it, and so we're giving ourselves the time and space to begin. Now, I just wanted to show you briefly that the Territorial Foundations is actually a movement that started in conjunction with the work that I've been doing in Barichara since the beginning of 2020. And these are the 5 territories named as cities or towns in their regions where there are now territorial foundations in place. Either they're already legally constituted, or they've been engaging community processes and mobilizing resources for 2 years, and they're about to legally constitute. So there's Barichara, where Penny and I live, but there's also Paisano, which is the Territorial Foundation in Bogota. There's another one in Medellin, another one in Florencia, and another one in Putumayo. And what you can see is we're covering in Putumayo, this is one of the headwaters of the Amazon River. And all of these 5 locations are part of the Northern Andes. And all 5 of these territorial foundations are forming a piece of the growth of infrastructure through a nonprofit called Territoria, based in Bogota, that is building the capacity for learning exchanges, funding and resources, technical infrastructure, institution building, legal advice, accounting support, to be able to set up this network of territorial foundations. And we're going to bring bioregional regeneration as a platform from our work in Barichara to the other 4 territories. So there's a lot of work that's been happening in Colombia, and it's already pretty advanced. I would say this level of institution building for territories is more advanced than anywhere I know in North America, and North America doesn't know about it. So there's a lot that those of you in North America are going to learn from this, and we're going to mobilize resources in both directions. Last week, we were at a really big event in Bogota called Shift the Power. It's a global movement that started in Johannesburg, South Africa, about 10 years ago. And what you can see at this table is the man in the orange shirt is the executive director of Territoria. The 2 women, as we work our way to the right, and then the man sort of there in the center, they're all from Putumayo. The woman there in the back on the right is Emilce from our team in Barichara. And then the guy that's, as you keep going to the right, that's halfway off the picture, he's from Medellin. And we've been meeting to explore, how do we create a regenerative fund for the Northern Andes? How do we mobilize resources into all 5 territories simultaneously? What is the role of Territoria to support each of the different bioregions? And you start to see that there's a lot going on in Colombia. And the Shift the Power event, which had 700 participants from 81 countries, including the Global Fund for Community Foundations, the Canadian Network of Community Foundations, and many, 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 many more, is that we're actually creating collaborative funding structures, strategic partnerships, institutions that can bring different kinds of support, and Latin America is about to take off. And so for us to bring what we're doing in the design school to Latin America is going to be a big deal, but probably the bigger deal will be what the rest of the world is going to get to learn from Latin America, because Latin America has some amazing knowledge and capacities. And so all of that's going on, and then Regenerate Cascadia is basically exploding. There's a lot going on. I'm not even going to tell you much about it. You should attend this session on Thursday, when Brandon and Claire are going to give us an hour and a half for a special Cascadia update session. Because basically we finished the activation tour on October 30th, and then Brandon and Claire have had insomnia ever since. They hosted a 10-day summit. They're building a digital ecosystem. They're helping to form watershed councils. They've helped to establish a Cascadia Seed Guild, a Cascadia Disaster Response and Resilience ecosystem. And oh my God, there's just so much going on. And so you're going to want to attend this session on Thursday or watch the recording, because your mind will be blown by what the Bioregional Activation Tour has ignited. And just to watch Brandon and Claire running as fast as they can, trying to keep up, is a little entertaining in its own right. And so there's a huge amount going on there, and I'll just save it for Thursday. Another thing that's happened is that Benji Ross and Anna Purpura have decided to leave the design school and pursue their passion of the Awakening Lands podcast. We posted about this in the global feed on the design school. So whenever Mighty Networks comes back on, you can go and learn more about it. Also, we're talking with Roberta in the Acadian Northern Forests in Maine about starting a pre-activation process in the new year. And we're thinking about how we can weave her efforts to create a bioregional learning center into the learning journey. And we're talking with Jonathan and Victoria about going back to Rochester, to the Genesee River and the Finger Lakes, and help them to more deeply catalyze and engage the communities there. They are also working to establish a bioregional learning center. So we think that there will be lots of opportunities to support them in their work through the learning journey. And as if we don't have enough to do, my daughter is about to turn 7. Her school just closed, and we are helping to birth a regenerative school for children in Barichara called Sueños del Bosque, which is Spanish for Dreams of the Forest. And as soon as I get off of this updates call, I'm going to run Elise to the Bioparque for the first day of a summer school activity where we're prototyping Waldorf education programs and landscape regeneration with 2 really wonderful Waldorf teachers starting this afternoon. So we're fundraising to buy the school that is being sold, that was the community school, to be able to pay teachers to prototype the school. And we see this as fundamental to the work of creating the Bioregional Learning Center, because the most incoherent part of our territory is the fragmentation of the adult world and the children's world. So as we create this children's school, we're going to bring all of the adult learning in our territory into greater coherence, which means during the learning journey, we're going to share how children play an integral part in bioregional learning centers, and how the Barichara example is an unfolding, inspiring story of real children, real teachers, real families, regenerating landscapes and preserving cultural knowledge while birthing a bioregional learning center. So you'll get to learn all about that during the learning journey as well. And finally, to close off the presentation and give space for discussion, Penny and I are exhausted. We actually haven't had a break. We could say since the Regenerate Cascadia tour, when we left on September 27th to fly to Seattle, but honestly, we didn't get a break for the 2 months before that when we went to the Greater Takaranto bioregion, came back to Barichara, and were sick for like 5 or 6 weeks and had a bunch of stuff to do. Basically, we haven't rested in months. And so this weekend, Penny and I are going to get on an airplane, fly to Denver. We're going to take the train across the Rocky Mountains, meet up with Brad, and Brad is going to let us borrow his car, and we're going to drive into the Utah desert. We're going to spend 2 weeks making the time to integrate and synthesize all of the changes that have occurred within ourselves, to have time for healing and restoration, and to have time for land connection with the sacred landscapes of the Colorado Basin. And so we're going to go quiet for the second half of this month after this weekend and take some much needed rest and recuperation. And so for us to talk about all that's happening, I wanted to show you this image from Casa Común here in Barichara, and I'll translate the phrases. You'll notice that there are pieces of paper with words on them, and there are threads connecting them. What it says is tejido de confianza, which is web of trust, and it's connected with sueños, which is dreams. It's connected with construir bienestar, which is the construction of well-being, to vivir la generosidad, which is to live the generosity. And you can start to see that this is what we're doing in Barichara, this is what we're doing in the design school, and this is what each of you is doing in your landscapes. And we're excited to talk with you all about it. And so, as you can see, it's like a whirlwind tour. But the coherent thing is that the learning journey itself will create a 2-week rhythm. And with that 2-week rhythm, what we want to do is invite people to become founders of bioregional learning centers, and then direct members of the school into their landscapes. To say, oh, anyone who is within the region or wants to fly to Maine, Roberta is hosting an event that's coming up in a month, and it's at such and such a time. And that we want to do this with all of the landscapes in the school where there's leadership and capacity on the ground. And so to just show you how a learning journey is a vehicle for creating coherence. And that's what we're going to use it to do. And so I'd love to open up to any questions or comments about all of this. I hope that it makes enough sense. It's sort of a whirlwind. You'll all get to live it starting in January. But I'd love to hear if there are any questions or comments. And also, Penny, do you have anything you'd like to share?
I don't think so. That was pretty good.
Okay, thank you.
I'm ready,
right, so
ready to discuss.
Whirlwind tour, lots to take in. But yeah, are there any questions or comments? We're taking it in. I know it's a lot.
Like Claire and Brandon.
Yeah, Claire and Brandon said that they double booked for a Cascadia campfire. They're super busy. Like, I don't know, Brian, would you like to share anything about the summit and how you see it relating to this, or just anything else? Not to put you on the spot, but I just did.
Sure, thanks, Joe. Yeah, that overview was really good, and it's a really great framework, and I like the integration of the on the ground with the learning journey, and taking one of the great things about the design school is we need to look at the conceptual level about how all of this fits together and how it makes sense in terms of all the bioregions working together to regenerate the planet, but at the same time we're connected to the on the ground work, and that's really valuable. We just this past Saturday had an event for our student eco leaders and elders and residents at the McMichael Gallery, and we'll be posting an article in the design school in the GTV space very soon. Susan's working on that now with a lot of photos, but it's about looking at land from different perspectives and helping people feel their place and helping people learn more about their place. And there's a lot that we can learn across all of our bioregions, which is going to be really exciting. In terms of the Bioregional Earth Summit in February, we're still working through, but we're looking at something that is a mix of virtual and in-person and live stream so that people can participate from around the world. We're looking at sliding across themes and scales. So we're going to be touching on the major themes of regenerating a bioregion, the Bioregional Learning Center, the Bioregional Foundation and funding ecosystem and governance, and the on the ground portfolio of projects or tapestry of projects. So making those connections between the concepts and what's happening on the ground. Also looking at Indigenous worldviews and knowledge, and taking the best of Western science and the best of Indigenous worldviews and knowledge for the third way forward. there's a lot to learn there. And connecting with doing that fractal scale linking from the work on the land here to the GTB, the Greater Tkaronto Bioregion, to the Great Lakes Basin, of which we're a part, and then to the other continental bioregions and areas across North and South America and around the world. So making those connections to Cascadia and to the Colorado River Basin and Acadia and Barichara and emerging parts of the network in India and the UK and so on. So trying to make all of those connections as well for bioregional Earth. So much more to come, and we'll be filling in a lot more details. As Joe said, we have a meeting tomorrow with Joe and Penny to further the evolution of what the Bioregional Earth Summit will be.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. Oh, go ahead.
Just one thing to add is there's a lot of people coming forward saying they're wanting to build, create a bioregional learning center in their area, like Elias here on the call in Africa. And then we have Maria Elena, who doesn't usually come live to these calls, but she's listening because of her time zone and other commitments. She listens to all the calls, but she's in France and she's coming forward and she has a full plan in place and wanting to talk to us about an activation there. And then we have Kieran in India. So we have, it's not just North and South America, but a lot of things coming online. Also Lebanon. Some of you have met Hadi and Karim from Lebanon starting to come on board. So there's a lot happening now across the planet as well, not just North and South America.
Yeah, and I had a really interesting conversation last week with a Portuguese guy who's a complexity scientist working to help bring regenerative practices to Sudan. And like basically when you go into war zones and genocide zones, and like the worst and most difficult places, the places most in need of regeneration, what I'm feeling is that pretty soon people are going to start to see what we're doing, and we're going to get invitations everywhere. We have a big challenge in figuring out how to hold the enthusiasm when people finally figure out what we're doing. We anticipate that people won't understand for a while longer because frankly, no one on earth is doing this except for us. And so how would they know how to do this? Nothing like this has ever been done before. And so yeah, there will be contingents from all over. Like I was talking with people from New Zealand and Australia last week, very excited, people in Singapore, people in Southeast Asia. So it's coming for sure. It will be planetary. So yeah, are there any other questions or comments anyone would like to share? Just taking it all in.
Yeah, I have a question. Yeah, I happen to live in a city. Now it's close to a lovely sacred river, but how do we bring regeneration to the urban environment, where most people in the world live? I mean, this is a big question because I know you said you pretty much have abandoned the idea of cities altogether, but I think I don't want to abandon everybody. Any thoughts?
I haven't abandoned cities. I visit cities, I work in cities. We were in Seattle during the Cascadia tour. We've been doing things in Toronto. What I've abandoned is the assumption that cities can be made sustainable. By abandoning that assumption, it frees me to acknowledge a basic truth, which is that we have 0 examples of sustainable cities in all of history. We've never had one. So anyone who claims that they will create sustainable cities is painting rainbows on unicorns. We have no evidence that they've ever existed. And so by removing that assumption, it frees me to see the world based on ecology and physics. And when I see the world from ecology and physics, I acknowledge that it's very unlikely that there will be cities after the collapse of the human population, or if there are, they'll be in very select places because of the unusual landscape geography that's present, and that they'll likely be much smaller than the ones that exist now. And that's just saying that's what physics and ecology tell us is the likely outcome. And so that's not saying that's definitely the case. That's just, looking at how ecological overshoot works and looking at the second law of thermodynamics. If you oversimplify the biosphere of the Earth by complexifying global supply chains of humans, you create brittle human systems and they collapse. And oh, wait, that's what all civilizations have done in the past. So it's sort of like, that's a pretty robust scenario, but it's a scenario, it's not a prediction. And so I would say that a major role of cities is to mobilize resources. There's a huge amount of composting of global civilization to do. And one version of it is to transform philanthropy for a lot of money from the wealth hoarders to go into setting aside and protecting land, to supporting the weaving of processes for landscape regeneration, returning land to the commons. There's a lot to be done about sunlighting rivers and streams, or daylighting, I'm sorry, where you basically break the concrete and restore their ecological function. A process that we saw in Portland, that we saw in Victoria and Vancouver Island, that we saw with the Don River in Toronto. And so there's something to be said about that. There's also something to be said about technology tools and knowledge. Although we should practice caution about what is appropriate and useful when we do that part of the work. And there's something to be said about the Earth observing system and the technical infrastructure for tracking the entire planet as a whole. Whether we'll still have satellites and river sensors and high performance supercomputers and climate modeling and other kinds of things like that after the collapse of the current system. And if there is, it's probably because there's either cities or at least there's networked human economies. So it just opens up that space where, like, if you look at what the Greater Takaranto bioregion is doing, they've built it around what is basically the greenbelt of Toronto and then expanded it a little bit with the Oak Ridges Moraine. And you have a large landscape system, one of the Great Lakes, and the largest urban center of Canada. So it doesn't exclude the city at all. But as Brian could attest, it's still really difficult to figure out what to do with the city. It's like, it just adds to the complexity. But yeah, all of that is to say, yeah, the majority of humans are in unsustainable places, but also the majority of humans are beyond the carrying capacity of the planet. So we're in a bit of a pickle, we're in a predicament. And there may be cities afterwards, or urban centers or population centers, but I find it better not to assume that there will or must be. And then it opens up the space to see. Hope that's helpful. Lots more.
Yeah, no, really, thanks for that perspective. It's really important.
Yeah, I'll just jump in if I may, just quickly. David is a colleague of ours here in the GTB. We're looking at, Joe has sketched out at a high level, the cities and sustainability. At the immediate level, there's a lot we can do in terms of systemic resilience in Toronto. We're working with LEAF, the Backyard Tree Planting Program, on how we can reconceptualize all the backyards in the urban centers and the suburbs as one big landscape. And what can we do with that landscape to improve systemic resilience, et cetera. And also looking at the whole food part of it, and also the whole idea of systemic resilience in terms of what you can do with existing buildings and homes in the GTB. So, and we're also working with TRCA, the Toronto Region Conservation Authority. They have a list of 10,000 restoration projects that they would like to do if they had enough money. So a lot of them are in the city of Toronto that will improve systemic resilience. So just want to jump in with that lower level view of it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Brian. And I can also see the potential for growing food, for instance, and so much wasted land in lawns that should be food production, and food forests. Instead of planting oak tree, well, oaks are good, but instead of planting pine trees, we could be planting hickory nuts and beech nuts and all sorts of things, since we do have the Carolinian forest extending this far. So yes, there are lots that can be done, and potentially reviving a city into a series of villages.
Yeah, and you can also add the urban growth boundaries, the use of land trusts and the Oak Ridges Moraine when we're talking about Toronto, and the larger regional food shed. So yeah, there definitely is, it's not that there's nothing to be done. There's a lot to be done.
Yeah.
It's just how to think as systemically as we can and actually think like ecologists. Because that would get us a lot further than where we are now. Victoria, thank you for your patience and welcome.
Oh, absolutely. I know that you've been talking with like the Buckminster Fuller Institute and others around the world that are also realizing bioregionalism as the solution. Can you talk more about what's going on at that level between organizations who are concerned and don't want to give up their own programs, but how to work together?
Yeah, this is an area that's both exciting and delicate. It's exciting in that the ideas of bioregionalism, or at least the, I'd say the fad of bioregionalism in a superficial sense is spreading like crazy. Like I'm part of a group that all these people that want to create bioregional learning centers, and really all they're doing is tourism. And they don't really know what a bioregional learning center is at all. It's just a buzzword. And so they're like, oh, we have 80 bioregional learning centers ready to set up across Africa. And I'm like, do you know what it takes to create a bioregional? Do you even know what a bioregional? Do you know what a bioregion is? And the answer is no, they don't. And so there are a lot of people that are catching these words as buzzwords. And that was actually one of the motivations for the learning journey. As I was like, if everyone's going to talk about bioregional learning centers, they should at least know what one is. And so, and now that's not true for Buckminster Fuller Institute, where Stuart Cowan knows bioregionalism really well. And there are people who know it really well. But if you go and look for bioregions of the Earth, you'll find the website of One Earth, and those are not bioregions, they're ecozones. And so they don't even get bioregions right on the One Earth website. And when I put up slides of bioregional Earth, I use One Earth's visualization of the ecozones of the Earth because it's beautiful. And I'm like, but it's also wrong from a bioregional point of view. And it's wrong in two ways. One is those are ecozones, not bioregions. And the other is there is no global map of bioregions because humans have to actually construct their own political identity of their own bioregion from within. So no one can externally create a planetary map. That's colonization. You know, it's a colonizer who draws the map of someone else's cultural boundaries. And so, so one of the things that I see happening is it's taking off like a fad, which is a bit dangerous because there's a lot of confusion that that's going to create. Now, on the positive side is that there is a growing number of people who are actively trying to create alliances and partnerships. And so, so that's the beautiful part of this, is that those of us who get bioregions, even in a basic way, get that you can't build them alone, that they require collaboration. And so I'm seeing a lot of that. I'm seeing a lot of both. But unfortunately, I'm also seeing humans with egos, with mental projections of their own superiority, who are like, well, I'm doing it and I have to pull you into my thing, which is creating more fragmentation and fiefdoms. And so I see some of those dynamics, which you sort of find with any diversity of strong leaders spread out around the world. You know, it's like herding cats, where they're all independently going after their own piece of their own mouse or bird or whatever they're hunting. And so there's a way in which the effort to create collaboration is tenuous because there are people who don't actually have the capacity to create collaboration, but are talking it. And there are people who are trying to do it, but aren't necessarily connected to the right partners. And it's all moving very quickly. So it's just very complex. But what I found is that there is coherence among actors who are moving money, or at least a subset of them. That as we start to talk to people who are working with Indigenous wisdom councils and creating circles of trust and working with high net worth individuals and trying to move them into landscapes and create tokenization and other technical tools to track things, that it's actually getting pretty good. It's not there yet, but it's progressing. So I hope that's like my sort of little list of inspiring, tenuous, problematic, beautiful fads. It's sort of still a mess, but we're progressing.
Can you give me a ballpark or a range? because as I talk with people about bioregionalism and ask them, you know, like, what does their property contribute to the bioregion? I would like to be able to, you know, with the idea that everyone who owns or controls property or has influence over it can, you know, create regeneration and contribute to the issues. I'd love to give people a scale. Imagine that there are 100 bioregions in the world, or, you know, what number or range would you say someday we'll come up with as this process unfolds?
I would say it's somewhere between a couple hundred and a couple thousand. So it's somewhere between maybe like 200 and 2,000, something like
Okay.
that. And if you just look at the North American continent and look at those maps of ancestral indigenous lands, and like, wow, North America had about 100 or 150 of them. Now, is each of them a bioregion? Maybe, maybe not. Some of them were federated, like the Iroquois Nation. You know, some of them, like in the Salish Sea, they have watersheds, but they have language families. So is it at the level of the tribe, the ancestral lands, or the language family? And I think these are good questions. So rather than trying to come up with, rather than saying one is the answer, it's to have them as like proxies. Let's try this as the answer. How does it work? Let's try this as the answer and see how it works. And what I think we're probably going to end up with is somewhere between like 200 and 2,000. So you could say, well, if that's the guess, then maybe it's 500, maybe it's 800, maybe it's 1,500. But like if you look here in the Northern Andes, where there's the Chibcha language family, which includes the Tairona civilization with the Kogis, the Guane people where I am, and the Muisca people based in Bogota. And you're like, oh, that's most of the Northern Andes, because they had an extensive trade network from the high plains of Bogota all the way up to the Caribbean coast and down into Ecuador. And so where is the bioregion is a good question. Rather than asserting that it's one or another, it's just, we construct stories of the answer and then try them on and see how people in the communities feel about them, because it's going to be a socially constructed political identity. But yeah, but that's what my guess would be, is a few hundred up to 2,000, and probably
you.
in mid-range somewhere. Roberta, welcome.
Hi, I'm just going to follow on the question about cities, because as you were discussing that, it occurred to me that another real benefit of thinking about cities becoming more regenerative is the fact that they're hubs of culture. And if our strongest leverage point for moving forward on this is changing the worldview, then places of concentrated culture and arts and creativity, even institutions, could be, you know, if integrated, could be an enormous hotbed of worldview shift. And I love the idea of the arts leading the way, the arts integrating with the landscape initiatives, you know, the learning process that will be involved in that, repatriating and rematriating objects in that are now encased in glass cases in museums. Those kinds of issues could all be discussed and worked on in the cities. And I think that yeah, as you've said, Joe, and it's very clear, there is just going to be this process of composting the parts of the old system that can be utilized in the new system. But I think that the cities, because of their creativity, and the culture that exists there, and the melding of you know, different types of people, I think there's just a great deal of potential for creative change that could be quite sudden once it starts really flourishing in the cities. And it doesn't mean that cities, as you say, will exist in the future as cities, but there is a huge role, I think, that they can play in this transformation because of the qualities that cities do already have. Use those as strengths as instead of thinking of cities as weaknesses. Just a
Yeah.
thought.
Thank you for that, Roberta. I see it as like it's a paradox. Because cities are the centers of ecological disconnect and globalism, like global workforces and people not connecting with nature and all of that. All those things are true, right, about cities. And at the same time, they have this tremendous creative potential. And so it's the paradox is that both are true. Like I was talking with the woman who's the director of the Canadian Network of Community Foundations. She's from Vancouver, and I met her last week at Shift the Power. And she said her family, her ancestors are from Peru. When she was in Lima, there was this piece of textile art about 50 feet tall that was a textile representation of one of the major rivers, the river that runs through Lima, beautifully visualized as a map. And she said it was just like sort of shocking, like it jarred her into metanoia. It changed her worldview just to see this textile of a river and be in the city. And so there's something about the power of art that should not be underestimated in all of this. So thank you for bringing that. Jonathan, over to you.
Well, that's all great. I just wanted to mention that we have a call coming up for the Genesee Finger Lakes bioregion or eco region, as we think of it, on Sunday night, and we're happy to welcome folks from all over who might want to join in the conversation. Yes, absolutely. It's about our bioregional learning center, but it's also an opportunity for folks locally to get a sense of the larger movement, which is something that people have expressed that they really care about. And for people in the larger movement to see what we're doing and, offer suggestions and critiques and kind of get a sense of where we are in the process. So 7:30 on Sunday night, and it's listed in the design school as one of the events coming up. People are certainly welcome to join.
Yeah, thank you, Jonathan. And for those that don't know, the Finger Lakes are a very special landscape or land system, the 11 parallel lakes. I call them the dragon claws of the Pleistocene because it's like the ice carved these parallel valleys. They're so beautiful. And they drain into the southern shore of Ontario, of Lake Ontario. Very, very special. Victoria, your hand is up, please.
I'm so glad Jonathan brought that up. Do you have time to come to Rochester? I think a part of this call will be after the Toronto summit that we, absolutely want you here. So do you have time? Can we talk about that as a possibility?
Yes, we emailed Jonathan about that this morning.
The answer is yes. So yeah, just for anyone who's newer that doesn't know, is that Penny and I are actually financially supported to be able to travel and work with landscapes and help them activate their bioregional processes. And we were already in Rochester once during a bioregional activation tour in the Great Lakes in February of this year, but we were there for a very brief amount of time. And we also sort of elbowed our way in, like, Victoria, Jonathan, do you guys want us to come? They're like, oh, we're not ready. And then they did it anyway, and it was really good. And now a year later, I think we can do a lot more. So,
and anybody who participated in any of those events was blown away. So while they may not come to meetings and all of that, yeah, that's what we'd like to create, the excitement of letting people know you'll be back and that, we're in earnest organizing this. We're finding out every day about more and more things regenerative going on in the area. So great.
yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Let's
Wonderful.
talk about that. And Brian and Susan and the GTB know very well how to gather a crowd by using us as the worm on a hook. So I'm sort of joking, but I'm joking in the sense they're not using us to be prey, but it does really work to bring in outsiders to gather people. It really does work.
Oh, yeah. And the possibility that we see now, having met some of these people from the Finger Lakes, an hour away, that there are conveners that, we are going to work on having them understand it so they can bring people. So it won't just be Rochester, that we should do this in the eco region.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
please. Thank you, Victoria. And we'll talk about timing for our crazy travel schedule, but we'll definitely make it work. And what I'm hoping is going to happen is that as we start the learning journey, you will all see how it can really serve your landscape and your work. To say, oh, we can shine a spotlight on what we're doing. We can host an event and invite people to come from not too far away. You know, they might travel a few hours to get there or be in the neighborhood. And that we can try to mobilize resources. We can help prepare you to mobilize resources, depending on your stage of readiness, to be able to map projects, to create portfolios of the work, to be able to articulate what it is you're doing more powerfully, and so on. And so what we see as being really needed in the next 2 to 3 years is a deepening of relationships within local communities, that they become really resilient networks of relationships for whatever disruptions will come. Because I think we can all anticipate a growing intensity and frequency of disruptions sort of indefinitely into the future for the rest of our lives. And so the more resilience in our communities we can bring, the better we're going to be able to ride those storms. And so to really use this as an opportunity to build that coherence and connect the landscapes, and to say, well, what if there are funders? What would they need? How prepared would you need to be ready for funding? You know, it's interesting. A lot of times people think that what they need is money, but maybe what they need is a very well laid out plan and partners who are ready to go. And the funding was actually not the hard part. They just didn't have the other pieces. And so just to name that there's a lot to this that is surprising, and that usually money is not the primary issue. It's usually less important than we realize. It still is important as a tool, but what's really important is relationships in the community, knowledge in the community, and collaboration and partnership in the community. That's what's really important. And so,
Well,
yeah,
it occurred to me yesterday or the other day that putting together a plan for what 73 acres in Honeoye Falls could look like, and putting dollar signs on the materials, the labor, the incorporation of volunteers, but also the core team for 20 years, and having that as a map of where we would be going, and starting to raise funds against that, you know, and have milestones that are reachable. People start to see, well, that's feasible. You know, these are actual opportunities, not just possibilities, to make particular things happen in, you know, so what we would really love to have, and we don't have any free resources here because all the people who are into regenerative stuff have to charge for their work. And they've come to the property, they say, oh my God, this is like, you know, amazing. If there's anybody in the design school that can help us map out, given the property, the topography, what's there, what could be there, what the names of those projects would be, where we might get some example budgets, those kinds of things, because Jonathan and I only have a very shallow idea of what can be done and what it costs and what it requires. So if there's anybody here that is willing to put that into it, as a, you know, and hey, maybe that's part of the trip, is that, you know, we have a workshop where we have all the maps that show the different ways that we can look at this, so that we can outline the projects, the kinds of projects, and we have people that represent all the different flora and fauna and geological things, and have all of that input there. That would be extraordinary, because I think funders want to fund these things. They just don't see the opportunity. So, but you're right, it's all the relationships have to be there before the funding.
yeah, and we just finished creating a 5-year budget and agenda for Bari Chara. I should really say Natalia,
Yeah.
with help from others in the Territorial Foundation. I actually didn't do very much of the work on that budget. I was busy doing other things, but we now have a 5-year budget and timeline for us to be able to restore the Bari Chara River, to create ecological corridors, to create education, ecosystems, to create commons-based land within the corridors, and to integrate the different processes to spread syntropic agroforestry, you know, all the different things we're doing in Bari Chara. And so the process of creating something like that and then just seeing it, like, how do you tell the story? We created a two-page brochure, it's in Spanish, but we created a two-page brochure that we shared with people last week at Shift the Power. And there's such power in having these kinds of frameworks. So, yeah. I
Can you
think
see that? Can you post this on, the Barichara section of the design school, all of the things that you have so people can see what it looks like when a community has come together and is ready to present something like that. That would be very valuable. I mean, I speak enough Spanish to understand. A
Yeah,
plan.
we're just playing catch up because we're doing too many things. But the idea is I am increasingly pulling the members of our team in Barichara into the design school. So the ones who are bilingual have already joined the design school, all of them, Margarita, all the rest of them. And those who are not bilingual, we're going to set up a Spanish language platform.
Yeah,
And so,
and just to say that's part of what I'm doing right now is collating resources from across the school. Like Roberta had a budget that she shared, and now I'm like gathering all these things in one place and in each of the hubs. So as these things come in, when they start to share what's coming out of Barichara, then there's a system in place now. And I'm gonna be sharing that with everybody soon so that it's easy to find and, find these resources that you can have examples of budgets. And there's a governance, I already posted like the governance example from Barichara and so forth, so that it's easy to
Should
find.
Should we look at the Barichara part of the website?
And now,
by-
yeah, but we haven't posted this document that shares the full picture yet, but there's the governance thing that Joe has already shared about with the circles of.
yeah, the
yeah.
sociocracy model of decentralized governance and how it's structured. Because we're basically creating our foundation where it's got, the foundation is just a mechanism. It's like a hammer. All that the foundation is a bank account, an executive committee to be sure everything stays on mission, and accountability to the state, to the government of Columbia. That's all that the foundation is. Then we're going to create bioregional governance and all of the collaborative work through the dynamic processes of the community and the landscape. And so all of the sociocracy models of like the regenerative education, the alternative economic models, the healing of cultural trauma, and all the and more all the things happening in the community are going to happen with community governance processes. And then we're going to have basically a bank account, an accountant, and a small team that makes sure the money comes in, goes to participatory decision making in the community. And so all these kinds of things that we're prototyping in Barichara are going to be good examples for other people to learn from.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've already been doing that for 3 years because yeah, I think-
Maybe it would be good because not everything in the Barichara part will be usable for other people as a reference, but maybe there should be examples of how it's being done and the prototypes or the templates that are, and then it could be Roberta's and yours, and
Yeah.
so we know where to go look.
And there's a space where I'm doing that too, where I'm gathering from all the different places, the different examples. So I'll show that soon. I'm just finishing up in the next few days,
Right.
and I'll show where that is, and also, where you can find it in the individual hubs of the landscapes, but also the collation.
Oh, good. Great. My last request is, since it would be very smart to invite people to the course starting mid-January, who we want to be at the, involved in the trip. And everybody who's going to build a bioregional learning center would want that. They would want to have the materials that would be, so we don't all have to create that wonderful language that the two of you do or whoever you bring in. It's just, really well done. And Brian too, but so we don't have to wordsmith all of that and spend that time. It would be really great to have something like that
Well,
we can send email.
just from a marketing gimmick point of view, pay $50 to attend a 6-month online course about how to birth bioregional learning centers. Get access to the design school for a year. Because basically a 1-year membership to the design school is $50. but people don't know what the design school is, so they don't pay $50, they don't join. But you say, wait, a 6-month course for $50? What? Like, there are a lot less valuable things to spend $2,000 on that are like 2-month online courses that people do all the time. And so I think anyone who's interested in this is going to do it. And we also have a scholarship fund. So someone wants to provide scholarships to those who don't have $50. You know, we've already been doing that all along. And so if someone says, oh, I invited my friend who's from such and such impoverished country, they don't have $50, but I just donated $50 for them. Could you give them a scholarship? We're like, done, you know? And so, so that's what's beautiful about this is that it's designed where the business model is we charge money to create quality engagement and community, but not because the money coming in from enrollment is what we need to survive. We're actually going to invest all of that money for membership dues into regenerative projects in the landscapes. And so, like we talked about with the Design School Fund a few months ago, it's just we've been so busy with everything else, we haven't gone back to that topic in a while. But, you know, anyone who wants to take a 6-month course for $50 would be like, oh yeah, that's worth it. You know, it's like, there's no question. So we're aware that we need to play these psychological tricks for this to work. And we need to create a membrane and a barrier for there to be quality in the community. Otherwise, we get really serious free rider problems. Never mind the problems with psychopaths and narcissists and other things. You know, the actual bad actors that would not want to pay $50 to come and create a problem. We keep them out too. And not all of them, but definitely gets the lazy ones out. And so, so just to say, we've thought about all of these things and we've had a lot of experience with how to do this and how not to, that we've learned from. And so I think this learning journey is going to be really powerful because a lot of people are going to hear about this way of organizing at larger scales and discover that we're actually creating a support ecosystem, support tools and community for people to do this together. I'm calling it a learning journey. And then people figure out that it's actually quite a lot more. So it's going to be fun.
So if somebody has a template for an email that we could tailor, we'd love to see something.
Maybe
Because somebody, you know, it really helps to just two of us come up with whatever, but somebody else might have something much more robust. Even if the major thing is $50 for 6 months, they have to understand what it is and be enrolled in that topic.
Did you see the Medium article that I posted?
Yes,
Because
yeah.
that one, I've actually expanded it. So it includes more information now. I'll share
And
it.
the 10-minute thing is really great.
Yeah, and I shared it again here in the chat where I added more about how the schedule will work, what people can expect, how we're going to engage with landscapes. So I've elaborated it a little bit more. A lot of
Great.
people there.
Yeah,
But-
it's a great article. Yeah.
But yeah, we've got a month. We've already had about like almost 30 people have signed up for the learning journey, and we haven't even been promoting it very much. And social media is broken, like the algorithms have destroyed it. So the best way this is going to be spread is by word of mouth. And I actually think we'll get a lot of enrollment in the first month after it starts, when people realize what it is and start telling their friends to jump in. And because it's 6 months long, you know, they'll like catch up on 2 webinars after coming in week 3. So, so it's really not gonna be hard to catch up. We've considered all of these things as we've thought about this. I'm expecting it to sort of snowball. It'll accumulate as we go and as more people understand what we're doing. Yeah,
Thank you.
so thank you everyone for attending today. I will make this recording available. And like I said, you can share the recordings of all the Design School updates. I'm going to post this to YouTube and put it in the playlist for the Design School updates on my YouTube channel. And so if you want to share this with anyone and get the word out that way, or just let people know what the crazy people over in the Design School are doing, by all means, please do. And Penny and I will wave at you from the confluence of the Green River and the Colorado River and from Capitol Reef and from Natural Bridges and wherever else we end up going. From Brad's front porch, you know. So thank you, everyone. And
Is the 10-minute thing still valid, or are you gonna redo that based on the new article?
the 10-minute video, what is a bioregional learning center, is still the thing to share around about bioregional learning centers.
Yeah, it's great.
I would just pass it along. Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for all the great questions and comments.
Nice
Bye.
to see everybody.
All right.
Bye.
Gracias.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.